Okay, so October is Transport Month, which in our country comes with a myriad of problems from the high accident rate, unroadworthy vehicles, unreliable transport and fuel emissions. Now, the Transport Department's Green Transport Strategy highlights that petrol and diesel account for 91% of emissions, very evident from the pollution we see in our urban areas. But there is a cleaner, greener alternative: electric vehicles. Now, to discuss this, let's chat to Hiten Parmar, who's the director of the Uyilo e-mobility program. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Parmar. Great indeed to have you here. I mean, we were just talking a few moments ago about in South Africa, hybrid electric vehicles were introduced in 2005. Is that correct?
Indeed.
Battery electricity vehicles in 2013 and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles in 2015. So a total of that about 5,834. Is that correct?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Is that good enough?
Not at all, because if you look at global projections and where that's lying, we've seen mass adoption of electric mobility globally in the world. And this is really moving away from the emissions from petrol and diesel vehicles that is really impacting air quality in cities, which is a growing concern. And this is one of the primary leading causes of death in terms of air pollution. It's in the top 4 causes of leading death from petrol and diesel vehicle emissions within cities.
Yeah. How close are we? Because I think there are some countries in the world that are talking about getting rid of petrol and diesel. I think in about 2025, if my memory serves me correctly. So where does South Africa fare in terms of meeting that kind of mark?
So to give you a retrospect, one of the studies done in Johannesburg is ranked 13th in the world in terms of worst air polluting cities. And that's giving you a retrospect on that. Yeah. So it's twofold. One is the technology of the vehicles on the road, and secondly is the fuel quality. So unfortunately in South Africa we are still on Euro 2 level fuel quality, which is then also in line with the type of engine technology that we have, which is also needs to be matched to that fuel quality of Euro 2. And this is a mix of situations that we're having that's impacting poor air quality in our cities. Whereas internationally you have Euro 6 level technology on the engines as well. That being said, there was a study done in South Africa. If we move to Euro 6, it's only a 14% saving in terms of greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah.
If we move to electric and we still use our carbon-intensive grid from Eskom, it's a 34% saving on GHG emissions. However, if we move to renewables, it's then 64% saving on that. So it's really a no-brainer in terms of moving to electrification of our transport system. However, it's also retrospect in South Africa's case that we have a very strong automotive industry. It contributes 7% to GDP, and that's been a policy framework from government to incentivize the OEM's investment into the country. And unfortunately, that policy framework has been very agnostic, or specifically focused to the technologies of petrol and diesel. We still need to see a policy reform to incentivize electric vehicle manufacturing in South Africa.
I want to talk about infrastructure. Do we have the correct infrastructure, though, in South Africa to carry all of this out?
Certainly. So if you look at infrastructure from a charging perspective, it's always looking, okay, do we have the vehicles and do we have the infrastructure? It's also part of the range anxiety that consumers usually face. So we in South Africa have one of the positive ratios from electric vehicles to infrastructure. So it's about 123 charging stations nationally around the country, specifically within urban environments. But we're beginning to see the highway networks coming along on that. So in terms of the ratio of 1,007 plug-in electric vehicles at the end of June this year, we matched to about 123 public infrastructure for charging. So it's a well-balanced ratio in that context. But one of the challenges that the automotive manufacturers face in terms of introducing electric vehicles in the country is a high taxation on electric vehicles. And this is what has been the barrier of entry into South Africa. But that's on the context that we have a very strong manufacturing base, and electric vehicles are currently manufactured internationally. And this is the trade import and export basis that we see in that. However, we are, from our initiatives and the national initiatives, trying to address that so that we can at least have some policy reform to make it more conducive to introduce electric vehicles in the country. Because as a nation, we've got our National Development Plan of 2030 that really drives deliverable from both government and industry towards a sustainable economy and sustainable society, which speaks to carbon-free transportation and efficient and effective transport in that sense.
And I mean, one of the positives, I think, with these types of vehicles, it's less maintenance. There's less, parts that are inside these vehicles? I mean, that's just one of the upsides to having electric vehicles.
Indeed, yeah. Your total cost of ownership is a lot better with electric vehicles. Even your warranty, most of the OEMs are offering up to 8 years warranty on the batteries in terms of that. And your traditional...
But the batteries, I think, is one of the issues that was raised. That's rather expensive, isn't it, at this stage?
Yes, so what we've seen is a massive decline of the price of batteries, and that's what's also driving the cost. So what we're seeing is that initially it's been expensive traditionally, but most of the frameworks now internationally are indicating cost parity between internal combustion engines and electric vehicles as close as 2020. So this is what's going to be a big game changer in terms of pricing point of view. But then it's also a case of each individual country's enabling environment across these both infrastructure, political will, and the enabling environment in every country to support that ecosystem. I
think I've seen about one or two of those vehicles at our age block here in the SABC. But, are we seeing a lot of interest? Is there an understanding, in South Africa, the South African context of why this is important, as the world's economies move, how we deal with emissions when it comes to these kinds of vehicles? Is there an interest? Is South Africa moving in the right direction as fast as we should be?
Ideally, we should be moving a lot faster. I've highlighted some of the challenges and real concerns that we face. And, when you speak about air quality, it really impacts the young, the aged, and the informal settlements that don't have the disposable income, that have to expend on that, on medical and other circumstances due to poor air quality. However, in that context, we're seeing that OEMs all over the world, vehicle manufacturers, are introducing new models of electric vehicles, and those will eventually filter into South Africa. However, if South Africa is not a conducive market to introduce these, we'll just see a longer delay in that. There's certainly a positive impact with the introduction of electric vehicles, both for consumers, for government, and the industry as a whole. But I think we all collectively, both with government and industry, need to create a better enabling environment around that. I think one of the biggest challenges is a lack of awareness. Both OEMs, both OEMs and also all sector role players need to come on board to be able to communicate and create better awareness of the benefit of electric vehicles and what they present for both the citizens and government as a whole.
And you've had quite a number of those talks with government, and I think at some point you even had, was it a road trip? When was that again?
Yeah, that's just this week that's happened.
It's happened this week.
Yes.
All right. A road trip. I mean, part of the awareness, I guess, would come from you, and also with government's own plans on how it plans to realize all of this, I guess.
Certainly. So the efforts of the road trip were through Generation E, who introduced the Smarter Mobility Conference earlier, and then now the Electric Vehicle Road Trip Africa that drove from Tshwane all the way down to Port Elizabeth and down to Cape Town, that just finished off yesterday. And that really demonstrated the ability of electric vehicles to drive all the way through our national roads, all the way on that 2,000-kilometer journey. And that was through vehicles that we have in our country, like the Nissan Leaf, the BMW i3, and the Jaguar I-Pace. And that, it is creating more awareness out there on what is available and the ability of this technology to be on our roads and move through our countryside.
Indeed, a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for your time. Hiten Parmar, who is, of course, the Director of E-Mobility, Uyilo E-Mobility Program, speaking to us here in our Johannesburg studios. Thank you very much indeed for your time.